Friends, Lily an alcoholic, sober today only by the grace of God and strength I received from this wonderful fellowship, and very, very grateful to be here. I thank your group for inviting me today to share my story here, and uh, welcome any newcomers who have come today. Some 3 months is great. I heard somebody sharing that today was their 3 months. That is awesome. Congratulations, and keep coming back, because this is the right place, and life changes. Life changes so much for the better. So just keep coming back. Don't give up before the miracle happens. Miracle happens every day. So with that, actually, I was hearing the topic release from fear, and I'll just share a line about that before I go on to my topic of higher power. Release from fear, I have found that unless I face my fear and walk through my fear, I will not get the release from fear. Like, giving an example is right now. I am scared of going, online with so many people I don't know, I've never met. But I know it's going to be all right. I know it's going to be all right because, if I'm afraid, I have to face it and walk through it, and then it evaporates. I just find that it evaporates. Before starting my story, also, I want to just share that. Whatever I say is only my experience and my opinion. I don't speak on behalf of I don't speak on behalf of my group. I don't speak on behalf of anyone, actually. It's just all in first person singular, like I was taught by my old timers. It's only for myself. So I've got a lovely topic that you'll have given me today about higher power. And today, if I can say that what is the singular most important fact in my life, I will definitely have to say that, having my higher power in my life is uh, so huge. But it wasn't always like that, of course. I came to the fellowship, and I came to the fellowship. I came just like the rest of us, beaten, defeated by alcohol. I had tried everything within my power to give it up, but it never worked. It just didn't work. And time after time, I would try, something new, some different approach, going away, promising, swearing, praying. Nothing worked. So I came here. I got the message of AA via a magazine, and I went to the service center. I went to the service center alone, and I was told about the meetings. And that's how it worked. That I would have to go to the meetings very regularly. Of course, I made 100,000 excuses. I can't go to the meetings regularly. I have children. I have this. I have that. It's so far. It was far. It was far from my house, but. I went nevertheless to the service center because I was desperate. By that time, I was desperate to get away. I didn't want to drink again. So I went to the service center. Next day, I went for my first meeting, and this was in a place again very far from my house. But I said, no, I'll go for the meeting. I went for the meeting, and I liked it. Actually, I went. I saw that there were people very much like myself, all men, but it, it it didn't repulse me, or I didn't think for a minute that I won't come back. Oh my God, they're only men. No, I heard the sharings, and the sharings touched my heart right from the first meeting. The sharings touched my heart because they were kind of speaking my language. They were speaking about all the things I had thought nobody would understand. The kind of life that I had slipped into, I thought nobody would understand. But here were a group of people who seemed to be knowing exactly what I was going through. So I had made up my mind. It was grace of God. Today I say that it is only the grace of God that made me, from the first meeting, say to myself that yes, I will keep coming back, because if I can get sober, this is the place where I can get sober. And no matter what happened, I kept going back. They told me that, oh, you have to do the steps, you have to come to meetings, you have to talk to people. So I talked, bug. I was lonely, it isolates you. Your drinking isolates you. And the last couple of years, there was really nobody I wanted to talk to, because my friends I didn't want to talk to in case they found out that I was drinking. My family didn't want to really talk to me, especially when I was drinking, because were so fed up of me. And I was hiding, didn't want people to, find me out. So when I came and I found people like myself who understood, I went on overboard, telephonitis. People in my family said I had telephonitis. I used to speak, chat all the time, go to meetings all the time, dress up and go to meetings. And I was loving it all. Steps also, okay, I was reading the steps, I was reading the preambles. I knew there was a big book which I was leafing through, not really reading it, but leafing through it and liking all of that. But friends, I couldn't stay sober. I couldn't stay sober. On all the fellowshipping in the world, on all the meetings in the world with, I couldn't stay sober. Because they said that you don't have the power to stay sober. Your defense must come from a power greater than yourself. Until that happens, you can come to all the meetings, you can talk to as many old timers as you want, but as long as you don't get in touch with a power greater than yourself, which can keep you sober, it's not going to work. And because I was slipping, because I was picking up the drink, because I was so scared that if A didn't work now, I had nowhere else to go, that I was willing. But then came the crucial question, that what on earth was I going to find that power? Okay, you all told me that, A told me that I needed a power which would keep me sober, but where on earth was I going to find that power? Which leads me to a story. I'm going to tell you a story. When I was I had heard many, many years ago. So there's this little boy, and he is given, one man comes and gives him a lamp, a magic lamp, and says, you keep this lamp. This lamp is yours, you keep this lamp. And for one day, he's excited about it and all that. Then he keeps it away in the corner of a room and forgets all about it. About a week, 10 days later, he sees that in the corner of the room, and he sees that's gathering dust. He doesn't like it. One lamp, what's he going to do with? So he takes it, bundles it up in paper, ties a cloth around it, and throws it away in the garden. He says, I don't need lamps and all. What am I going to do? I'm going to play with lamps or what? He throws it away in the garden. The corner of a garden, he goes and throws it away and forgets all about it. Then he grows up and, he's going through life. But life is very hard for him. Life has really become very hard for him, and he just doesn't, his work is not going well. Finances are in a mess. His relationships are all crumbling and falling apart. Very miserable, very unhappy with life. When he meets the guy who gave him the lamp in the first place, and that man comes and asks him that, and he tells that man that, I'm going through a very, very tough life. My life is very tough and nothing seems to be working out. And he looks at him and says, where's the lamp that I gave you? What do you do with the lamp? Hey, lamp? What lamp? You didn't give me any lamp. I forgot. I have lost it. So he said, remember, I gave you a lamp and I told you it was a magic lamp. So what have you done with it? He says, I don't know. Okay, let's go to the garden. Let's look for it. I throw it away somewhere in the garden. Let's go and look for it. So he looks all over, digs the garden and finds the lamp. So he says, yeah, this dirty, filthy lamp you're saying is a magic lamp. So he says, but you have to clean that lamp, no? How will the magic work unless you clean the lamp? So he said, okay. So he takes a cloth and he cleans the lamp and he cleans the lamp and he cleans the lamp and he says that, is it okay now? So he says, the friend says, let me see. He says, yeah, it's quite clean, but you have to clean more. Then he takes out the paper, he takes out the cloth and all, throws it away. And when he's polishing it, then it starts glowing, and that glow gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that glow actually, that is the magic lamp, because it can direct that man, it can tell that man what to do, it can show the man the way, it can make the man's life come together again. And why I'm telling you this story, friends, is because my life was like that. My life was like that. I had not much idea about God or what God was, because I was born to a Hindu household and I was went to a convent school. So between, you know, myriad religions and different structured religions that they were being followed in my house and school, it was a hodgepodge. And somebody told me that God is truth and God is love, and you know, God is good. So I put that somewhere inside myself, the great reality somewhere inside myself, forgot about it. And through my life, what I was doing, I was putting, and every time I was unkind, it was a layer of dirt. Every time I cheated, it was a layer of dirt. Every time I did something my conscience was telling me and I did the opposite, there was another layer of dirt. When I was drinking, a lot of dirt got into it. You know, my drinking, alcoholism may be a disease. And a lot of the things which I did was a result of my disease. A lot of the bad things I did today, I realized was a result of my disease. But the action that I did put layers of dirt, put layers of dirt. That accumulated. Just because I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't know why I was doing it, and because I did it because I had a disease, didn't excuse me, didn't excuse that light from going you know, more and more deeper till it was lost, absolutely lost. And then that's how that spark, that goodness, that truth that I was told about got hidden, and I had no idea where it was. So when I came, and you know, I was slipping and sliding, then my old timer said that, look, you have to do your steps. You have to do your steps. And for me, the steps was dredging fearlessly, thoroughly dredging inside, taking out all that muck that I had put in myself and finding whatever that light was that was inside me and that is inside each and every one of us. So first and foremost, the 1, 2, and 3 steps, 1, 2, and 3 is deciding whether I'm sorry, I've lost a bit of the track there. So, hmm? Yeah. So, I was still on the story, and I've come to my, yeah, related to myself. So yeah, I lost a bit of the track there. I'm sorry. So that is what got me into the steps. That's when I decided that, you know, without the steps, I was not going to be staying sober. So 1, 2, and 3 is deciding that I was going to do the rest of the work that you know. That was required of me. I had to take a sponsor, and 4, 5 was taking out all the muck that was inside of me and putting it, sharing it with somebody else. 6 and 7 was literally telling myself that I don't want to live that way again, not even one day again, and being willing to make amends to all the people that I had hurt. I had hurt in the process of my, you know, on all that I did. And once I got through to steps 8 and 9, I could actually see that, you know, there was something inside me that whatever it was that had hidden deep inside me came up. Like, you know, if there is one candle and if there's a very dark room, that one candle can dispel the darkness. And so with you know, doing the 6th step, whatever it was inside, that light that was inside me did shine. With that, I could, you know, sort of come to terms at ease with myself and the rest of the world, with the people around me. 4 and 5 really put me at ease with myself, and 8 and 9 put me at ease with everybody around me. And you know, this is grown. This has also grown. The whatever it was inside with step 9, doing this step 9, it's really grown. The promises are not extravagant. You know, they come true for each one of us, and really you can handle situations that really used to baffle me before. I can talk to people. Relationships that used to bother me have become so much better. Financial, I used to be so financially insecure, and you know, that leaves you, that has left me, and I feel now that I have a place in this world. I'm not a bit better than anyone else, but I'm not a bit worse either, because that same spark that is inside of me pervades the universe. It is in every single person, every single tree, and every single bird, and in the sun, the moon, everything. It pervades. It's so huge. And where's bad self-esteem? Where? I used to suffer from low self-esteem. I used to suffer from low self-worth. How can I, the emperor of the universe, the galaxy, is my father. He is the one who presides over us all, the father of light that who presides over us all. You know, those things left me. That so you know, with all of that, it really put me on a different footing in how I handle myself and those you know, in my interpersonal relationships with people around me. And it was an infinitely better plane, because I always had my higher power. My thinking was directed now from a very self-centered person. You know, doing my steps put me onto a God-centered person. It just allowed God to enter my life and direct my thinking, direct my life, and there's been no looking back. There's been absolutely no looking back since. But of course, it didn't end with with the 9th step. It went much further, you know, because this uh, practice, whatever, it would not, it would only last for the 24 hours. So the 10th and the 11th, where I had to enlarge my spiritual life by staying in touch with my power. It happens very easily, you know, it happens very easily. And there's a reading that when God seems far away, who moved? God was there in the beginning, and God will be there in the ending. He has no beginning, he has no ending. So when God seems far, the connection seems lost. Who's moved? I've moved. I put again layers and layers of dirt back on the light, so I can't see it anymore. But allows you every day to take stock of yourself, find out where I've gone wrong, say my sorries, and come back on track. And this power has grown and grown and become so big that miracles seem commonplace. It seems like a commonplace thing. Miracles happen, you know, like before it used to seem funny, but now it seems quite okay. I want to share what happened to me very recently during the lockdown period. And for me, it was again my higher power acting anonymously or not so anonymously, because I know it's him now. So I have been blessed with a beautiful grandson. And in Chicago, I had gone for his birth in February. While I was there, Corona scare came up, and coronavirus and what is going to happen. And, you know, I was hearing all kinds of, it was buzzing about planes not being, international borders being sealed. And how was I going to come back to Calcutta? Because I'd already stayed there for 6 weeks in Chicago, and I had to come back. My work was here and everything, so I had to come back. You know, and this was 19th, no, this was 18th of March. 18th of March, my son was trying the airlines to prepone my ticket, and my daughter was trying in Chicago to prepone my ticket. Both of them could not get the airlines. It was on the 18th, it was terrible. And I knew I needed to get back, because by then I had an idea that the borders were getting sealed. So on 19th, I got up in the morning, and I told my higher power, look, It's in your hands. And I'm not going to think about it. You want me to stay in Chicago forever? It's up to you. You want me to go back? It's up to you. I'm not going to think about it. And I told my daughter, just try. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And of course, she tried, immediately got through. I got my ticket, and 19th, I boarded the flight there. That evening, that very same evening, I boarded the flight there. No problems. I came back to Calcutta. Went through checkout, got my baggage, and came out of the airport. This is at 3 a.m. in the morning. And there are these huge buses. So these huge buses outside the terminal gates. They kind of just bundled us up into these buses, and we went for some 20-25 minutes. We were going into the darkness. I had no idea where we were going. Fields on both sides. We're going into the darkness. So as I'm telling my higher power, I've told you that you're in charge. You take care of it. I'm not even going to think about it. What is going to happen? You decide. So we went, then at last, about 25-30 minutes into the darkness, we came to this hospital, new structure, new, long, tall kind of a structure. And we were all told to get down with our luggage and put the luggage in the, there was a small park there right next to that. So they put your luggage there. Then I asked, what is this about? So they said, oh, this is testing. We're going to test you. And anyone we feel is going to be quarantined here. 55 and above, anyone who's 55 and above is definitely going to be quarantined here. That didn't look like a friendly place at all. It looked like a horrible place, in fact. So I'm thinking, I'm sitting there. See, people started crying by then. You know, people, somebody 70 and all started crying. I said, what rubbish? You know, what is going to happen? What is going to happen? It's all my higher power's hands. I'm not even going to think about it. Then we went. There was a little cubicle with 2 doctors sitting there. And they asked me some questions and all that. Then they took my pressure. They took my pressure perfectly all right because I was not worrying. They took my pulse perfectly all right because I wasn't worrying or anything like that. They said, you know, we've got directive that 55 plus has to stay in quarantine in here on top. So I said, oh, I said, really? Feeling bad actually because I didn't want to stay there. The other guy says, but because, and I'm 61 by the way. He said, but since your underlying parameters are all okay, you can go home and quarantine. I was so happy, you know. I said, this is a God thing. This is really a God thing. You know, I'm just saying these, sharing these with you because this happens. This happens when I can surrender, when I can trust God with everything, things just smoothly happen. But being human, I don't remember to do that very often. I don't remember to do that very often, which is why I have all the problems in my life. But by and large, you know, whenever I do remember to hand over, to give it over to my higher power, things work out. And even the changes in me, you know, on doing my steps, I realized how many character defects I had, which actually led, you know, the selfishness, self-centeredness, which which led to the fears, the abnormal fears, the unreasonable fears, the resentments, the anger, the jealousy, all the emotional baggage that I had, especially anger, you know, the shouting, the anger. And I was told here in AA that, you know, whenever you're angry, there is something wrong with you. No matter what the other person has done, if you're angry, there is something wrong with you. So learning, you know, what was wrong with me was not enough. After learning, after being willing, after honestly knowing, first of all, is the how, no, the honesty, the open-mindedness, and the willingness, the indispensable. These 3 are indispensable for a relationship with my higher power or for anyone else for that matter. I have to be honest about my character defects. I have to be honest about what is blocking me off from the sunlight of the spirit. I have to see it. I have to see it properly. And only then, only when I'm honest and it's on the table for me to see and someone, my sponsor to see, it's only then that I can change it. Be willing to change it. Be open-minded enough to want to change it. Asking my higher power to, do it for me, handing it over. Not so easy, again, not so easy, because the 6th and the 7th step, for me, the most important steps are a lifelong step. And, every time an occasion comes up when my character defects come to the surface, my sponsor used to say that this is the time that you have to work on it. So if I'm getting angry, work on the opposite. Or if you've already got angry, realize that you got angry, make your amends, and next time don't do it. So this is your chance. God is giving you a chance. God can't do everything himself. He can't just because he took the drinking problem right out of me, lock, stock, and barrel, doesn't mean that he's going to do everything for me. I have to work too, right? So 6 and 7 is lifetime work. 6 and 7 is every time there is a problem, every time there is a character defect which comes up like a snake, I have to deal with it. I have to deal with it and overcome it. It's much better now. It's much better now. And as I keep working the steps, as I keep indispensable to working the steps is, of course, the 12th step, which is the most important in terms of spreading keeping, having a light within me and keeping it to myself is not enough. The more I spread of that light, the brighter it grows. So the more I reach out to alcoholics, the more I'm in service, better I feel. The more I feel that my higher power is also working with me. Because service is such an important part for the selfish person like me. It is very important to be in service, so I can come out of myself. And I think my problems are so big, little problems I think are so big. As soon as I reach out and I ask find out about another person's problems, I see that actually it brings my own problems to perspective. And usually by the time I'm talking to somebody else, I've forgotten also what my problems are about. So these are all multiple pronged. Every line that the big book has written all about this AA program is multiple pronged to help me to get working with me, not me alone, but that would be a mess. But sponsors, old timers working with me, and getting the connection with my higher power better. I always think before that God was not interested. God had so much to do. God was not interested. It was first of all, it was a punishing God. Otherwise, why would God give so much suffering? Lot of times to children, to people who didn't deserve it. So my idea of God was, okay, somebody up in the skies, somebody not very interested in us. But okay, there. I know it's never that I disbelieved in God. A taught me that, A told me to choose my own God, my own conception of God. But what I've found out, my experience has been that far from not being interested in me, I think I'm very central. That kind of unconditional love is what I crave from human beings, but never got. That kind of, I'm central, to his scheme of things. It's a broad, roomy kind of a place, broad, roomy road. It's not, he doesn't make, like, it's not the rituals. It's not in the rituals anymore. It's not in petty things. It's just a beautiful space, what I had wanted all my life. And I've heard in the rooms, and I believe if I take one step towards him, he'll take 100 steps towards me. And it's a very inclusive thing, just like our program is. Even he's very inclusive. A has taught me a new way of dealing with everyone, people around me, and praying. It's taught me a new way to pray. Ask for other people. The more you ask for other people, the more peace you get within yourself. And the more peace I get within myself, the more I can be useful to people. How can I be useful? The one underlining prayer that I have today is, how can I be useful to others? How can I, thy will, not mine, be done? With the third step prayer, I come out of myself, relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. And the seventh prayer is that, take me and work with my character defects. You can take them lock, stock, and barrel, you know. Because I want to do your will. I want to know what your will is. I want to help me to do it, you know, so that I can be useful. And when I'm useful, when I come into use to people, I feel better about myself. I feel better about myself. I feel worthy. I feel useful. So that's how life goes. That's how it's going. And, you know, there's never a time that I feel alone. The lockdown has happened now, it's going on almost 3 months, but never a time that I feel, you know, that what will happen, I'm alone. First of all, because you people, us, kind. This is the kindness that A has taught all of us, you know, that reach out a platform so that everyone can, you know, be included. And we have these meetings every day, different groups, different meetings every day, first of all. Then, you know, I have prayer time. I need structured prayer time. Actually, for an indisciplined person like me, I have opted for structured prayer time, and I know that I can chat with my higher power anytime, and he listens to me. So it is most of the running through the day. It is informal in the sense that he's accessible anytime. But for my own discipline, I have a structured. You know, this is what I do from the morning. This is what I do in the night. And it helps me. It helps me a lot. A has given structure to my life, actually. A has really given structure to my life. A discipline which was very necessary for me, for an indisciplined person like me. And today, I don't know, I would have been lost. I would have been absolutely lost without A, without you people. And very, very happy that I'm saved by all of you, and very happy to be, I've been given a chance to share today. Thank you very much, Yolanda. I think I've finished.